prioritize in 2.8.
Yeah, Lyra was picked quite a lot in the first series of today, and Unity did seem to favour it, and we're seeing so much less Scarf emphasis. This is really interesting. I didn't expect the majors to be as important as they are. And of course, Lance, first pick from Elite 8, that's smart. Pick it up for themselves or deny it away. I think Catherine's still a fine pick, or Grace. It doesn't make much difference. It's more depending on what your captain is comfortable on and what composition you want to run. If you want to run a CC chain comp, they both can work. Catherine's probably better. But if you want someone like a healer, then obviously you're going to want to pick Grace up now. I think Black Feather could be an alright pick if they don't want to go for Scarf, because obviously second pick Scarf would be really strong with a healer with Celeste removed, and they're going to go first pick Idris. We see Idris get through draft without being banned or picked, and now Bren really want to first pick it. Again, why have there's been two weapon power Idrises? I really want to see a CP Idris today because I think it's such a strong hero.
I mean, I'm with you on that. You know, we've seen two weapon Idris coming out, although the casters' desk have been talking and have been giving CP Idris a lot of talk and a lot of attention at this point in time. So I'm hopeful, hopefully we'll be able to see a CP Idris. But with that, a CP Idris being picked, if it is a CP Idris, then Glaive would be one of those priority bans. If not, then at least the mage to just remove the mage that would come out. If not, then Castro. Castro will be a very good ban at this point in time. Like you said earlier on, Castro is a very good counter into that of CP Idris in that early game if Castro is placed in lane. So with that, I mean, for the side of Elite 8, they have got all the comfortable picks, and based on previous season itself, we saw a lot of Batiste being picked up for the side of Elite 8. Firstly on that, and Glaive as well. They have got a lot of priority pickups, especially those heroes that can snowball in that early game, like that of Koshka. We've seen a lot of that from them. On top of that, Cruel as well. However, Cruel has been changed a little in this current patch so that DMR do not provide him as much health barrier as he had in 2.7. So what do you personally think? I mean, we are at a standstill at draft at this point in time.
I think Catherine's going to be picked up now, is most likely. Just get the captain, and then in return, Elite 8 Scarf. And that becomes into a skill matchup. If you're CP Idris against Scarf, it's whoever can land more skill shots. And I did not expect an Arden. That's a very interesting pick, with Catherine obviously still available, Finn available. Lyra and Grace have both been taken off the fold, as well as Lance. But maybe the Arden pick does signify that it might be a weapon Idris with a Scarf jungle if that's allowed, because Arden Scarf is a fantastic combo together. And so if Elite 8 decide not to pick it, I'm pretty certain that Nebula will, that Bren Esports will decide to change their comp from maybe a CP Idris to weapon and then push that into the jungle. But I really hope Elite 8 decide to pick Scarf themselves. It's a good pick, and obviously with the majors, with the Celeste already gone, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for them. And now lane, they've got Glaive, they've got Kestrel, which they could go for. It's really a comfort pick, and Vox could work. I don't think it's great against CP Idris. I'd much prefer to see a Kestrel personally.
Well, yeah, Castro will be the more intelligent pickup at this point in time. If not, then Glaive. We've seen a lot of Glaive and Scarf. There you go. We do see a Glaive being picked up by the side of Elite 8. Glaive at this point in time is in a very comfortable point in the current meta. Firstly, the Afterburn, and of course with that Tension Bow and Sorrow Blade, build that is coming up on Glaive, he just put up so much burst in a very short period of time. However, we do see a rather peculiar pickup coming up from the side of Bren Esports, and that would be a CP Fortress, I hope.
Yeah, most likely to be a CP Fortress and a Weapon Idris lane. I mean, it's possible we're going to see Weapon Fortress. It has had a little bit of an emergence with the Tension Bow build, and just so that to
That's a duel.
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Luxura, and thanks for early draft analysis, Mini. So we are here in the first match between Elite 8 and Bren Esports. And yeah, looking at those team comps there, is more than likely going to be that weapon power Idris. I know it's a bit of speculation, between the casters of we want to see a CP Idris. It's just in what situations can it work out? And as Minnie might have said, you know, it just wouldn't be the best decision to go a CP in this case, where weapon would work out so much better, because it's really once he gets to level 6 and is able to get the Shimmer Strike, he can get onto the backline quite easily, and more than likely they're going to be looking for the pick up onto the Scarf early on if possible. But we're going to have to see how these team fights play out, as Guessing is going to go and jump in there, takes a bit of damage in return. They weren't able to get the mid camp, as is an early rotation coming up from the side of Elite 8 into that middle to pick it up and secure it early, and actually a full recall back from the side of Bren Esports.
Well, there is one thing as well that I wanted to mention earlier on. It's that I guess a CP Idris would not work as well coming into the comp like that of E8. But honestly, if you think about it, the Chakram does a lot of damage. You can kind of try to reposition yourself in terms of those shroud stabs and try to land your Chakram. And the high burst that CP Idris brings to the table, and of course with that range, means that you can out-kite a glaive as long as you can block out the afterburn and try to just stay behind that of Guessing Axe on that of Arden, so you can just do your range attack. And on top of that as well, you have Sync 1 on that fortress that can soak up a little damage as long as he has got ultimate ready and he has got a fortified health when he calls his wolves out. So that is one thing to note. But however, I think being Southeast Asia, the weapon build path of Idris will just be a little more prevalent.
We just have to see what's in Cincy 1 builds here. Because right now, it's going to be the CP Idris. I was looking at the builds, and I'm like, okay, neither of them have gone for that CP yet. And, you know, maybe Cincy 1 just wants to clear farm a bit faster with his autos early in the match. But we're going to see Mr. Jim picking up that heavy prism to start with. Obviously, the Book of Eulogies being there at the start to help well in lane. And we're going to have to see how the CP works out, because I do agree with you there, as long as Mr. Jim is able to position themselves well enough. And when it's going up against Scarf, it's actually not that bad being CP either, because Scarf is a mage hero, meaning they're going to have to stand still when they use that Spitfire. And if you're able to dodge it out, or just be in a good position in the first place and then land that Chakram onto them while they're doing so, CP Idris has so much damage potential there with the CP Chakrams coming through. And right now I'm just wondering, it really depends which team is going to be the aggressors in this situation, because right now if Elite 8 choose to be the aggressors and Hun Jaegers is able to sit comfortably in the backline without being challenged, I could see the game going over to the side of Elite 8, especially falling into the late game when we see the Scarf ramp up so much. However, I'm excited to see what Mr. Jim on this CP Idris can bring to the table, and we're going to have to see how it flows with the rest of the team comp, of course, with that Arden and the Fortress, who is now going to be a weapon power for.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, there is one thing I want to mention, and that is Minimize's response when he found out that it will be a CP Idris, and in his words, it reads. Yes! Okay. Sorry,
that's like a reverse 3, and it's just... I'm sorry about that, chat. You had to deal with that, but that's just some bad voice acting. Good thing that Luxura is not a voice actor. Instead, he is an amazing analyst there alongside me, and right now we see Guessing going in, actually taking a fair bit of damage, and there's no kill going to be secured. First blood not going to be handed over just yet, and it looks like Guessing going to be able to heal up from that one. Did use the fountain on themselves though, so that could be important into the next team fight. Might give Elite 8 the advantage as they're still holding on to theirs.
Yep, there is one thing we must note as well. It's that Bren Esports, they are very accustomed to playing very, very aggressively. But when it comes to going up against 8, especially with that Lance being able to hold lane so independently, and of course not forgetting the poke coming from Han Jaeger as well, and also the rev up time for both Sync 1 on that Fortress and Mr. Jim on that CP Idris, they are playing a tad more passively, to be honest, because I've played with Guessing before. And he has a play style that is very unique to himself, and it's that he enjoys putting himself out there and just soak up a lot of damage very unnecessarily, but he makes plays for his team, but another team fight will break up.
Mr. Jim with the dodge away from that Impale, however, no fault from Elite 8 as they were only able to, I guess, lock down Guessing. And as you were saying, Guessing likes to be that aggressive Roma, which we'll see here as they jump right into the middle of the fight. There's going to be Impale. It does land with the root onto Mr. Jim, even though they were able to Shroud Step out of that one. And really, neither team able to find the solid engage. Of course, you would expect Elite 8 with an Impale and an Afterburn. They should be able to find something here. They even have the slow on the Goop if they're able to land that. But right now, both teams playing it fairly passive. Bren Esports, however, going to use that minion candy, try to put a bit of aggression onto that first turret. And yeah, it's fairly, I guess, even at the moment. Quite a passive early game.
It's definitely a passive early game, but there is one thing that we must note, and I would like to bring point to the viewers. It's the rotations coming up from Elite 8. They are doing the double carry rotation back into the jungle and just leaving Anime Save Me to hold lane. Like I said earlier on, and I pointed out earlier on, it's that Lance can generally hold lane very, very independently, do not quite need any support from his allies because of the Gideon wall and the damage reduction in case the enemies do decide to push forward. And with that, you do see Official Hind at level 7. Oh, then
there's going to be the Afterburn going in, and Pale doesn't land, however, fair bit of damage from that first turret, and there's going to be Attack of the Pack is popped by Cincy 1, and they're just able to push the enemy team off once again. So it's more of this push and pull effect and no one really able to confirm anything at this point. I think there's a very good effort from Elite 8. They just weren't able to land all the CC they needed to. If the Impale had landed and the Afterburn, maybe they could have got the kill onto Mr. Jim early on. Because right now what's keeping Mr. Jim alive a lot of the time is Guessing on this Arden, going in there with the Vanguard to keep him safe and get him out of there with the speed boost, as well as the initial kit of Idris having the Shroud Step to just get away slightly. Of course, you're not going to have the blink that weapon power has, but it's still enough in some situations. Oh, there's going to be Impale going in once again, and you see Vanguard instantly onto Mr. Jim. They want to keep them alive indeed. Right now, it's more Cincy 1 as you see the tension bow built up on them is going to be in there just for jumping in and adding that little bit more damage. And I think a lot of Bren Esports comp is going to rely on how well Mr. Jim can go into the late game and diving onto that backline and gain those kills. But right now, Bren Esports is kind of having to just respond to the engage coming out Elite 8 every now and then, as we see another Impale Vanguard onto them. Afterburn was followed through, but there's going to be the Gauntlet keeping them Elite 8 in a 2v3 situation, and there's going to be the Shimmer Strike in there by Mr. Jim. Kill going over to Guessing, but first blood overall to the side of Bren Esports, and as I said, they were just waiting for the right moment.
Yep, and there you go, the fight has not ended yet.
It has not, as Anime Save Me going very... There's going to be the engage coming out from the side, or the re-engage, I should say, coming out from the side of Bren Esports, and Mr. Jim so low under that turret, able to make it out alive, and they're able to pick up a kill onto Hun Jaegers as well, and they're now going to push onto this first turret. So getting first blood, followed up with the second kill, and the first turret of the game. Bren Esports doing a great job to start, I guess, putting a bit of momentum into this match.
Yep, and this is one thing that I want to point out is that Elite 8, with their rotation at every single point in time, they would usually be a level up on Bren Esports, but they are not fully utilizing the level advantage that they have. And on top of that as well, like you mentioned earlier on, it's that they have very good gank potential, and they just use that gank potential that they have in that early game trying to bully Mr. Jim out of the lane, that Elite 8 would definitely have the upper hand. However, they are not doing so. They are playing very, very passively, although their team comp wants them to be just super aggressive, going in for ganks after ganks and just capitalizing on the fact that they have an advantage in terms of, say, the numbers advantage, but they are not doing so. However, the turret of Bren Esports is getting very, very low.
Yes, and you can see just the damage now. Jaeger's able to put down that range damage with the Spitfires, really put a bit of siege potential on there. And Bren Esports needs to be careful because they cannot let themselves get out of position, because they will get punished for it with the Impale and the Afterburn that is on the side of Elite 8. So you can see that the lane constantly being pushed up, even with minion candies, which is quite surprising. We saw it being used previously on the side of Bren Esports. They were putting some candies onto the minions earlier to try push, and right now that's going to be the response coming out from the side of Elite 8, at least for that initial try. I think maybe now having to step off that, going for a bit more vision, as you see Anime Save Me picking up some scout traps as well as flares, and I think, you know, it's quite important that they have this map advantage, because we saw in a previous map vision, I should say, we saw in a previous game where there was a glaive that was just able to roam freely, and it just destroyed the enemy team. I think it was in our previous game with J3X versus Nebulae, and J3X had a glaive on that team, and they were just wreaking havoc because the glaive was able to get into the back lines just so suddenly with that afterburn. But right now, I think Bren Esports doing a decent job to keep the jungle fairly balanced with vision, and right now we see the engage coming through by Elite 8. They're going to be able to find the turret, guessing going low, but it's not quite the target you want. There's going to be attack of the pack and Gauntlet to follow through. However, it's going to get blocked out by Elite 8, and they're going to be able to walk free from that fight. They were able to get a turret, so I think for the side of Elite 8, that's definitely a positive engagement. They didn't get any kills, but I don't think that's what they were looking for in that situation.
Yep, and one more thing that I have to note and point out is also the fact that, you know, the passive game, if Bren Esports is going to continue on this very passive gameplay and not just fully utilizing the advantage, every tiny advantage that they get from every little team fight, then definitely Elite 8 will come out on top, because they are very patient players, firstly, and on top of that as well, the poke coming up from Scarf is just much more consistent as compared to Mr. Jim on that CP Idris, because it's just down to, you know, your cooldown on the Chakram versus the cooldown on Spitfire and Goop. So if they are going to play the passive game, then definitely Elite 8 will come out on top. And that is quite an issue at this point in time, because if they do it like we saw earlier on, allowing Elite 8 to just be on play the passive game and just dance around on the lane, in lane with Elite 8, just spells trouble and doom for your team, because they have a glaive that's very patient. Official Hein is known for a very patient player, able to withhold that afterburn till very crucial moments. And on top of that, if you have Han Jaeger just, you know, breathing fire and throwing out Spitfires here and there, dropping goops as well and igniting them, just zoning out your entire team. So that is one thing that Bren Esports have to take note when going into team fights, because Mr. Jim just do not have the clear speed of Han Jaeger on that Scarf, firstly, and do not have the burst that Glaive and Scarf has.
Yeah, and right now we see that they are walking right into the Spitfire of Han Jaegers, where the whole team of Bren Esports needs to be careful indeed, as you mentioned before, and there's just so much zoning coming out from that Scarf right now. And you're right, that is definitely where Bren Esports could fall off, and they need to be so cautious about, ooh, they face checked for Brush since he won, taking a fair bit of damage, but Anime Save Me very low. They might want to back off from that fight, at least let Anime Save Me go back to base and heal up, which looks like that is going to be the case for them. And Bren Esports, I think taking notice of that, is going to go for this gold miner, which I believe is currently full. However, Official Hein and Han Jaeger's weighing in the wings, and Official Hein going to be able to steal that one, guessing going in with the gauntlet, but looks like Official Hein going to jump right out of there. And Bren Esports actually being on the back foot of this fight, as you can see, Mr. Jim on the back line already very low. There's going to be the Echo was used earlier, guessing able to use the gauntlet once more just for safety. And that is back out there. So you were just saying before that, you know, even though Bren have the kills and what looks like the early advantage, they got the first turret, we now see it's starting to sway into more even grounds, if not what will eventually turn into the side of Elite 8 taking the win, because if they let Elite 8 continue to play this passive game, they're just going to get ramped up, and that Scarf is going to become such a threat.
Yeah, and there is one thing as well, it's that this player style is very unlike that of Elite 8. The Elite 8 that we've come to know and love would be the aggressors half the time. They don't play passively, they just jump in, they put out as much damage as possible, and on top of that as well, they can easily just take down Bren Esports had they just try to commit. You know, they can...
Ooh, those are fighting words there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, let's all be honest, yeah? And guessing, right? Burn the Echo, burn the Gauntlet twice, which means they do not have a soft CC for the side of Bren Esports, and yet Elite 8 is not really committing and taking advantage, capitalizing on the burnt ultimates, like that of Gauntlet, one of the very big ultimates coming into this game. So that is one thing that, you know, Elite 8 maybe have to work on coming to this game. They obviously have got the upper hand at this point in time. They have got better siege, better, you know, displacement properties and singling out properties. And yet, none of them, or none of those properties are put to full use, good use at all.
Yep, and we see it's already 6:30 in, only 2 kills. Slow and more so passive game. And right now, whichever team really wins a team fight is going to sway this one. We're even in objectives, almost even in kills, but we're talking about Elite 8 maybe just holding back a bit. You think that Elite 8 have a clear advantage if they decide to go in for a fight, and that they should just have a bit more confidence in their team comp and where they are at already in this match. I mean, if we look at the farm, 196 on Hunjägers and Mr. Jim, 210. Both of these laners have been hyper-fed and should be looking for a fight. And when it comes to if they're able to be the engagers, which we'll see here, there's the gauntlet going down, and they're going to chase Elite 8 through that corridor into the enemy jungle, and they're pushing through, but they walked right into the goop, into the Spitfire. They get taken down. Glaive, meanwhile, is actually who they should be looking at, because we didn't really focus on how much damage this Glaive is also putting up, because right now Mr. Jim is such a glass cannon build there. It's how you have to build CP Idris, but I think it's not going to be effective enough if you're not able to get in there and lock down anyone. And it's what you talked about earlier about soft CS, not soft CS, soft CC with the gauntlet. Obviously being hard CC if you're able to land that stun, but I think in those situations you saw them push Elite 8 back into a situation where they might have been able to win it out, but they just forgot about having to worry about the Scarf and the Goop, and it just went all in Elite 8's favor, and they've just been waiting out for this moment.
Yep, and this is what I'm talking about. E8, Elite 8 definitely would have what it takes to win a lot of team fights based on the amount of damage they can output. And I mean, granted, Bren Esports, we do not discount the damage that they have. They have got a CP Idris, but, you know, they have better fight potential. They can jump in your face, go up into your face, try to take a Hunjäger as soon as possible in the early part of the game. But allowing the entirety of Elite 8 to just rev up into that late game, there is no way Bren Esports can possibly come through. You are running a weapon fortress after all, but I'll talk more as Elite 8 is just trying to push into the crystal turret.
And there's going to be a defensive use. It isn't going to be enough. Anime saved me from getting out at the Crucible to escape that one, and it looks like the Kraken, first turret is actually going to go down, and so is Idris, and now we see Scarf just pushing in for the double kill. They're going to push in for the win. It's only guessing up. He won't be able to save the turret, and he won't be able to take anyone down with him, just fighting to his last breath, giving it his all, but that's going to be that ace going over to the side of Elite 8, and a very patient, well thought out game from Elite 8. They managed to come through with the win at 19 minutes, 33 in, and GG, well played.
Definitely. So, you know, just looking at the game itself, it is rather harsh for the side of Bren Esports. But to talk more about this game, let's invite back Mini Mitre to break it down for us.
Thank you for that. And